Hello there, cats and kittens. My name is Alonda Carter, and I am the Recovering Hunbot, and this is Hey Hun, You Woke Up. If you are watching me on YouTube or listening to me on one of the 10 different podcast platforms, thank you so much. Today, my friend Jessie joins me. Now, like me, she is a former Beachbody coach, but unlike me, she was in the top 1%, meaning she built a team and she also made six figures. Josie is one of those people that when I was in Beachbody, I looked up to because I wanted to be like her. I wanted to walk across the stage. I wanted a team. I wanted to have what I thought was just all this beautiful life and glory. Although I was at the bottom and she was at the top, we both eventually did see that what you're told about multi-level marketing, or MLM, is really not the truth. The contents of this video is based on my experience, my research, and also my personal opinions, as well as Josie's personal opinions. It is intended for entertainment purposes. Now, granted, I do throw some shade on the MLM industry, and I definitely am giving it a side eye. And there might even be some tea spilt here and there. Anyone that's mentioned in this video is a public figure, and I think we keep everything pretty much anonymous, but if you've been in the Beachbody bubble, there might be some things that you can figure out. This is not intended for anyone to go after anyone who is mentioned in this video. Please be kind to each other if you're leaving comments, and be kind to me. And above all, do not send hate to anyone who's participating in the MLM industry. And now let's go ahead and welcome Josie. Hey, Josie, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate your time. Now, you and I are, I guess, sister Huns, sister former Huns, because we were both in Beachbody, but I was down at the bottom and you were up at the top. So today I want to talk to you about what it was like to be at the top, because I was always trying to get there. I wanted to walk across the stage. I want to know what that shit was like. I want to know all of those things. So thank you and welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited. Yeah, it's very interesting because we are both Beachbody, ex-Beachbody Huns, so we do have those stories there. I can tell you the first couple years in Beachbody was so much fun. And I always like to say cults are always fun in the beginning. Like, I don't know if you've watched like Wild Wild Country on, or Wild Wild, whatever it is, on Netflix, or like some other cult documentaries. I'm always telling my husband, I'm like, see, this looks so awesome in the beginning. And then you like get deeper in and you're like, what's happening? But at the time you don't realize it's what you're involved in. You think it's you, because that's how they program you to think that if something doesn't go how you want it, or if you're stressed, it's on you.
Absolutely. Now, as a former Beachbody Hun, I can remember being in the group, and we were under the same person, which that person's name will just be silent about, but you know who I'm talking about. And I'd see the leaderboards of people getting Success Club points. And if you don't know what Success Club points are, those are the points you were awarded, when you sold something to someone. And it's a different point system that will then translate into cash. But, it's a weird thing I've talked about a lot. But anyway, I would see people on the leaderboard and I'm like, but I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do. I mean, to the point where I was working 12, 15 hours a day on this stuff and having no results. And I can remember then, I did hit Emerald, so yay me. Couldn't hold it. And Emerald is the first rank, if you don't know. And then there would be this push to become Diamond, which would really be kind of like the next rank. There's one in between that's Ruby, but most people usually would hop up to, the Diamond. And I know there would be all these extra little groups that you could get in if you were performing. And so and I don't know what all of them are, because obviously I wasn't privy to them. So I'd like to get your perspective of what were those groups? What were they like? And did you really learn anything that we weren't, quote, learning? And I don't know if we were really learning anything, honestly, other than to be janky.
So there's always so many groups. It doesn't matter what MLM you're in. There's so many groups for you to be a part of. And it is so overwhelming. Like, anybody who's been in an MLM and they're on Facebook, they can attest to all the notifications they get nonstop. But then you also have the self-development you're supposed to be reading. And then you also have the back office of the company with a plethora of information that you're supposed to read and go through. And it's unbelievably overwhelming, but they do it like that on purpose. Any cult, it's a part of information control. They flood you with so much information that puts them in an amazing light. Like I said, so they're always in the right, you're in the wrong if something doesn't go well. And so, yeah, you just become indoctrinated through all these different avenues, and you don't even realize it, because especially with these groups that you're talking about, it's just, it's shown as like a reward. Like you said, you don't get in them unless you hit a certain quota or you perform a certain way. And that was always really hard, because I remember, like, I just like people, and I like, like, I don't like drama. I just want everyone to be like rainbows and hugs and unicorns, and let's all just love one another. And it's hard, because as I moved up the ranks, my upline was like, no, you only help the runners. You only work with the people who are having results. You don't reward the people who are giving effort. You reward the results. And that was so hard, because it was like, but they're telling me, like, that's what a good business owner does. So it's like, oh, well, okay. And so you just get like involved in this. Like the girl I just interviewed who was from Arbonne, she was like, her upline told her the same thing. She said, if they don't make money within the first week, you leave them. So yeah. So I mean, that's how it is as you move up. But you have to remember, like, the more you move up, the more you're involved in all these secret groups that you've earned. And there's so much more information in there. So it's kind of easy, in a way, as horrible as it sounds, to leave those people who aren't hitting those numbers, because you have this and this and this and this to focus on now. Like, that flood of information doesn't stop. And as you go higher, you're going to run out of your warm market. Like, people have asked me on my first anti-MLM video that I made, they're like, what made you successful? Like, do you know what it was? Like, what was? And I was like, I had a bigger network. Like, let's call it what it is. I had a bigger network. And so the more that you move up, the more you're going to run out of that network, and you have to start running ads. And so, like, I remember paying like $300 for that ads course that you also took. And I didn't know how to run Facebook ads. Like, I learned, but it was still very hard. They don't tell you that in the beginning, right? Like, they don't tell you those things. They don't tell you all these things, or you wouldn't have joined. So yeah, the groups did teach more. It's exactly how a cult works. So when you get into a cult, they're going to make sure that they don't tell you everything, because you would be like, hell no, I'm out. Like, forget this. So they give you a little bit of information, right? And like, then you hit Emerald, and it's like, yay, now we're going to help you hit Diamond. When you hit Diamond, you get to be in this special group, yada, yada, yada. So when you hit Emerald, all you have to do is you just keep doing I can't remember what they called it, like the daily vitals or something. And you would do your workout. You would invite people. You would drink your shake, and you would do yada, yada, all those things. And you would post about it, right? So that's all you have to keep doing. But that's not too hard, right? Like, you're just being a product of the product. You're sharing what you love. That's great. And you help other people do that. So that's not that hard. But then once you get into like Diamond Ring, then they give you a bunch of more information, and you're like, oh, okay. And they start teaching you like content creation. And as you keep moving up, like when you hit Star Diamond, which is when you have a diamond under you, then you get like a bunch of other special things, and you get more groups to like you get into the Star Diamond groups, basically. And it's just more and more information, and it just never ends. And I just like remember being like, the higher I got, like, yes, it was great with like the money and getting to pay off some debt and like, helping some family members. That was great. But I had somebody ask me in an interview, they were like, did you ever feel like you made it? And I was like, no, no, because there were 15 ranks to hit after you hit Diamond. So you have to, they want you to hit 15 Star Diamond, right? And then once you do that, what do they do next? You want to hit 15 Star Diamond in your second business center. You start all over again. Like, you never make it. You never make it. So even though like you have days of celebration, you have to keep going immediately. And I remember like when I started to wake up from the illusion was in my 3rd year, and I was at a retreat, which was with our upline. And then there were like 2 or 3 other people who had been in the Millionaires Club. So they've earned $1 million throughout their time in Beachbody. And they were there. And I felt so lucky to get to be there because I was a 3-star diamond. And I was like, oh my gosh, I was a 6-figure earner. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get to learn from them. Like, I'm going to hear how to do it because I had just been spinning my wheels, right? I had been trying to run Facebook ads. I had been posting content like 3 times a day. I was creating content like a month ahead. I was running groups for my challengers. I was running groups for my team. I was trying to recruit. Like, it never effing stops. And so I remember being at this retreat, and one of the girls there, she had hit 15-star diamond. And you and I know what happens when you hit 15-star diamond. You get 15-star diamond day, and they fly you out to corporate, and they lavish you with all these balloons and flowers and plaques and trophies, and you get to be interviewed on camera with the CEO and congratulated. And like, they have all of corporate line up when you come off the elevator to like be there to congratulate you. And I mean, they show us these videos and they're like, you can do this too. Like, this is what you want. And you get to go on like this special trip with other people. And so I'm standing next to her in the kitchen, and we're all like kind of on our laptops, like trying to work. Like, nobody was having fun there. Nobody. Everybody was miserable. Everybody was exhausted. And this was when I was like, oh my gosh, like, why is nobody happy? Like, that's what started to scare me, because I like to do things for fun. I know that things can't always be fun, but I'm like, this is a special retreat that we earned. Why is nobody happy here? And so I was next to this newly 15-star diamond coach, and I said, how was your 15-star diamond day? And she goes, you know, it was just one day. And I lost it. Like, physically, like to her, externally, I was like, oh, okay. And then internally, I'm screaming. I'm like, what the hell do you mean it's just one day? Like, you're saying it wasn't worth it? Like, like, it scared me. It scared me because I'm like, what am I working so hard for? And I started to realize that my ladder I had been climbing so long and so hard was leaning against the wrong building.
Wow. Just wow. Because, you know, being down at the bottom and wanting so badly to get up there where you had been, I can remember thinking, and I still think about this, it's like, I know how much work I was putting in. And I'm thinking, it can't possibly be less work when you get up there because, and I always talk about like, it's kind of like a Jenga puzzle because people leave and you got to like plug it back in and you have to keep on trying to fill those holes up constantly because people don't stay because they're not experiencing success. And I've often thought they've got to be mentally and physically exhausted, but yet on social media, when they're doing videos, when they're doing any, poses for the camera, doing anything, it looks as if they're, quote unquote, living their best life and all of that crap. I mean, so what are they really doing? Is that all completely fake, or is there any part of it that's real?
So, I mean, it's real to you in that moment, right? Because like, I mean, I was able to go out and like buy a Mercedes. Don't get me wrong. Like, I was making payments on it, but like, that was mine. I was making so much more than I ever did as a hairstylist, right? So it's like, it's kind of like cognitive dissonance. So it's like you have these things like the money, the material stuff that you can buy. But then the other part of your brain is like, this is so hard. Like, why is this so frustrating? Like, this is just like, when do I get to like mentally relax? Like, this is just, like, I feel like a hamster in a wheel. But you have the money and the material thing. So you have to be like, well, this is good. Like, it's helping me. So you just think you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. And you just, I guess, like, I just kept thinking like there would come a point where I would like make it and I'd be able to like rest and just be like, I don't know, live off the residual income. That never happens. Most people or most MLMs implode on themselves, at one point or another. And but when that happens, only the people who are in at the very, very beginning and having massive downline continue to still make money. But don't get me wrong, they still lose money. Like I remember my upline when a lot of us lost money in 2016 because people bought workout programs from us and they bought DVDs from us. And Netflix and Hulu were on the rise back then. Like they were just like rising up, like they were becoming so popular. People weren't buying DVDs anymore. Like I can't tell you the last time I bought a DVD. We don't even own a DVD player anymore. So our income, my income went down so much. And I wasn't the only one that happened. And I remember my upline like complaining that she lost millions. And she was earning, like I remember her telling me in 2015 she earned 3.5 million. So I mean they lose money, but it's that for them it's not enough to walk away. But it's I just thought at the time it was that company, and I thought I'm going to find a better company, one that treats its distributors better. And I joined 2 other companies, and I got to the top in those companies, and I was like, this is not like what's going on. And that's when I started to realize it's the system. It's the entire business model of an MLM. It's not a specific company.
Well, you mentioned something earlier, and it's something that I often talk about because I say that when you join one of these things, if you already have influence, like you said, you had a large network, that's one thing, but most people don't have that. They don't have that big network.
Right.
And, we all know people who were, married to a baseball player and, something that gave them a very large network. And it's like, well, no wonder you're successful, or you're the sister of one of the super trainers. Well, no wonder you're having success because, you're not your average Joe, so to speak. But they try to make it sound like that you can just be anybody and come in and actually make money. But we both know that's not the case. That if you don't have that built-in network where people will say yes, then you're just going to be on the struggle bus like what I was on. Absolutely, 100%, no doubt. And these are designed in a way, as you've said, to get you to keep going because you are in all these groups. And I know you and I think we both joined, paid for some of the same things where I'm like now paying to be in groups that aren't part of Beachbody so I can learn more things so that I can have success. But yet that still wasn't happening. And that's where I learned the Facebook ads and yada this, yada that, the social media coaches, the network marketing coaches, the personal development coaches. I mean, like how many different coaches do I need to go to so that I could actually, find results? But then you're not going to, for the most part, most people, because like you said, it is the system. It is designed for most people to fail. But I want to kind of go back to like what people who are at the top, how are they feeling about making social media posts, about being in different groups, their responsibilities? Are their responsibilities tremendously different from what it's like when you first start, when you're down at the bottom and on the struggle bus?
Oh yeah, because you have a whole team now of people, and you have a whole team of people on the struggle bus, because we know less than 1% make significant money in network marketing. So now you have a whole team of people on the struggle bus. So for me, there was lots of times I felt guilty because I'm like, I know these girls are working hard, and you're told from uplines and other groups, or like the coaches who train network marketers, you're told, well, they're not working hard enough. If they don't want it bad enough, they don't have the vision like you do. And you're just told to leave them.
That's just so sad and so wrong on so many levels.
And it doesn't help. It doesn't help when you've made the money, because then it just reinforces the idea that, well, if I did it, they can do it. Like if I did it, they can do it. And like people will be like, well, why don't you look at the income statements of the company, yada, yada. Well, any type of, any type of, not explanation, but any type of thing that somebody says, like, well, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? Why didn't you look at this? Why didn't you look at the facts? An MLM has an explanation for all of those. Like all of those. So we were told, oh, well, the income statement doesn't take into account just the coaches working to make money, because there's discount coaches, people who only buy the product and they sign up just to get the product at a discount. So those are included in the income statement. So it's really not giving the full advice. So you're like, oh, okay, so there is a greater chance of making money here then. And then when you make money, it just reinforces the idea that like, okay, I did it, you can do it too. And then when they're telling you at the top, like, these people just don't want it bad enough, like, it's awful. And it's such a cult.
You know, and I've talked about that because I knew that I was being looked at as a discount coach, even though to me, I was like working my business, even though I wasn't getting the results. But I knew that they're like lumping people out like, oh, they just love the products. No, we don't love the products. We are looking to have that lifestyle that we never could obtain. And I find that really interesting that they reinforce to you that there's like all these people who just happen to just love it so much. Because you know what? I've never met anybody on the streets that have come up to me and been like, girl, have you heard about all these great products from Beachbody? Not a single time ever. It wasn't until I was part of it that then all of a sudden, you know, I fell in love with the products because I was part of the system. So I find that really interesting that they try to kind of, even though they're showing you the facts, kind of, sort of, with the income disclosure, but they're twisting it for you guys who have, you know, risen to the top so that you continue to believe like, oh yeah, okay, so that's why it looks like this. It's really better than this, but they're including this. That is incredibly interesting, incredibly deceiving, and even more thought reform, you know, that you're experiencing as you're hearing more of this sort of stuff, especially the stuff of like, well, they don't want it hard enough. They don't have the vision, you know, you do, but they're not like you. So I can really see how that sets up that, you know, that black, white, the in, the out kind of, you know, group setting.
Right. And you don't want to question stuff or, you know, use critical thinking, which they call negativity, because then you're lumped into the them group, the us versus them. You're lumped into the them group. So you just want to stay positive, which just shuts down your questioning, basically. I remember, to answer your question about like the social media thing, I got so sick of constantly having to take selfies and post them and share like everything about my life. And I remember when I first started, my upline had said, she was like, it was one of those groups that you were talking about. Like, it wasn't an Emerald group. I think it was when I got to Diamond. Then she put us in like a special training group, and she taught us to make our social media like a reality show. She goes, that's what I do. I make my social media like a reality show, because if you look at like the Kardashians, people love to follow them. And so I make my social media like that. And I share pictures that like show what I'm doing in my life and yada, yada, yada. So I got real tired of that reality show by probably like my third year in. It just was like, oh my God, like I'm so tired of posting content, because your life becomes lived to only take content. Like, to give content. Like, it's not actually you living your life, and it's exhausting. And I started to have like this awakening when it was the last summit I went to, the Beachbody conference, and the Star Diamonds were in the back of the stadium underground, where like the football players come out onto this field. So we're back there in this like hot, sweaty tunnel, waiting to go out on stage and be recognized. And they had us lumped up by like 1 Star Diamond, 2 Star Diamond, or 2 Star Diamonds, 3 Star Diamonds, and all the way on. And I just remember everyone being on their phone on a Facebook Live. And when we walked out of the tunnel onto the field in front of an entire stadium of people and onto this huge, beautiful, well-lit stage, and they're like announcing us, and we're walking across the stage, every damn person was on their phone on a Facebook Live being like, see, look at this. I get to be recognized. You can be here too next year. And I'm like, oh, you mother effers are just so stupid. Like, why aren't you enjoying this moment? Put your phone down. Like, it was driving me crazy. And that's when I was like starting to wake up, and I was like, I can't live this lifestyle of like, let me show you every little thing. You know, like, they're not even living in the moment.
You know, that's so interesting, because even me down at the bottom, I mean, I got sick of, you know, taking selfies and, you know, showing my dogs or my husband and I. And it's like, it's like, oh my gosh, it's like, can I just have a day? But you're always on. You
Always.
never have a day off.
No.
It's like, I have never worked so hard and so many hours in my life. Not even through the 2 grad programs I've been through. I've never put forth so much energy towards something. And I mean, you had results, and I know you probably put in as much or more energy in than what I was doing. And I just, at the end of the day, for those people who made it, that seems really sad that they weren't able to enjoy it. But I guess also it goes into just mentally, you have to keep showing everybody how fantastic everything is. So you really do become a completely different person.
I remember women being worried to get pregnant because they were worried how that would affect their business. Because when you're pregnant, you're not going to be posting before and after pictures of your weight loss transformation. You're not going to be posting, skinny pictures of yourself. And I just remember thinking, this is so screwed up. And I remember thinking, I'm not having kids. I don't plan to have kids. But at the time, I was on the fence about it. And I thought the same thing. I was like, what if I get pregnant? Is this going to hurt my business? That's such a messed up thought to have. But it's just, when you have to document your life so much, and you're a health and wellness company, and everything's about the next program that's launching and the best before and after that you could get from it to get more sales and to get more people onto your tribe, that's the mentality of it. And I would see all these people, even people on my team who would get pregnant, they would have a baby, and then within 4 days, 3 to 4 days after having that baby, some people would even do it 2 days. They would be posting a picture of themselves in a crop top, showing their stomach, and they're like, I'm so happy I kept working out during my pregnancy. It's helped me snap back. See how flat my stomach is now. And I was like, Mama, you just pushed out a 10-pounder. Go take a nap. What are you doing? You can't take time off. It's scary.
And that's so funny because, they really slam, corporate America or any other job, anything outside of MLM, it's completely slammed. But yeah, guess what? You can take time off. Like this past week, I took a day off to go to my friend's funeral, but if you're MLM, I would have had to have been posting stuff about, see, look, I can even do this freely, but you're not free. To me, I really feel that MLM enslaves you. It's they put shackles around you and they keep you just entrenched in something. And I think it really oppresses women. It doesn't empower them.
Absolutely. And what's interesting that you just said that is because, so our upline was not around very often for us. Even once you got higher up, once you got higher up, it was expected of you. Success was expected of you. So hitting your quota, you don't get a clap for that. You were supposed to hit your quota. You've been doing it for a year, so why wouldn't you do it now? That's the mentality it was. Unless you hit 15 Star Diamond, which 0.01 hit that. But so I had a mentor who was also under our upline, and she was high up. She had hit 15 Star Diamond a few years before. And she was super sweet. She had been a pharmaceutical sales rep. You may know who I'm talking about.
I do.
Very intelligent woman. She was just awesome. Her and my upline were always fighting. They were friends before they joined the company, and they were always at each other's throat. There was so much drama. Anyway, this woman was there for me. She would answer my questions. She would take time to talk to me on the phone and help me out with things, or learning things, or giving me advice for how to lead all these people. And I remember the year that I left in March of 2017. Everybody was pissed off. Everyone I knew was just my income's going down. This sucks. Because we were just told, oh, no, everything's fine. You just need to work harder. And it's BS. And so I remember her telling me, I walked away from corporate America because I felt like I was in handcuffs. And now I feel like I have Beachbody handcuffs on me.
She actually said that?
She said that. And then when I left, she was the one who made a video about me and the other people who left, calling us traitors, comparing us to Lamar Odom, and saying that we were never there for our team. We never made the kind of money that we said we did. All this, it's still up on her YouTube.
I saw the video. I watched it.
Yeah. And I just was sitting there thinking You liar. You lie. What are you talking about? You said Beachbody is like another pair of corporate handcuffs on you. But when you have a mass exodus of people, you have to say those things to save your team, to save your money, which is your livelihood. And that's exactly what she was doing. She also blocked me, which is sad. And it's sad because it's like, I really liked her as a person. She was awesome. But it's like MLMs ruin relationships. And if you leave, you are shunned, you are excommunicated. And just like how Scientology takes out those articles and writes hate blogs about you, like that's what happens.
Yeah. Now, when I left, nobody really knew. And I just kind of like, because I wasn't really involved in everything the way that I had been. So it was nothing. It was nothing. But the year of 2017, I remember that because the back office used to tell you how many coaches there were in the network. So you could see that number. And then they changed back offices. And it's like, you couldn't see that number anymore. And I always found that so interesting. I'm like, because I was seeing that number go down. And I was telling people, wow, it's gone down to this. And I'm pretty sure that's why they took it away. So people couldn't like monitor that kind of a thing.
Well, they also said in that same year when compliance was just terminating people left and right because they changed the policies and procedures because so many people who that was their livelihood, they were like, I got to pay my bills. So they joined another network marketing company while doing Beachbody. And they were like, okay, I'm going to work this one as well, but I'm still going to do Beachbody, but I need to make more income. Beachbody didn't like that. But their policies and procedures stated that you could do more than one MLM as long as it wasn't a competing health and wellness MLM. Well, they didn't like how many other people were doing a second MLM because it sends a statement to everybody below you. It says, I'm not earning enough. Hello. So like everyone below you is like, well, maybe I shouldn't be trying to like get up there. They're not going to be able to make, pay their bills. Maybe I should try for it. So Beachbody changed the policies and procedures and stated you could only do one MLM. Then they said, all of us were like, wait a minute, we have discount coaches, people who just sign up as a coach just to get the discount, and they're involved in like Mary Kay or 31 or Isogenics or whatever. I'm like, what do we do about those who are discount coaches? Like, are they still allowed to be in those MLMs? Because they're not working the business. And the head of compliance said, we have never had discount coaches. You are either a coach or you are not. But I can prove that's false because they made the mistake of sending us out our year in review, which you got once you were like a certain rank. Every year you got your year in review. And in your year in review, I remember printing this out before I left because I said, I want to have a copy of this so I never forget why I walked away because there was just so much drama. Let me find, hold on. They bring out the receipts. Okay. So the very last thing, it says 6% of your PS coaches were discount coaches at the end of 2016. See, discount coaches? Yeah. So when they said, we didn't have discount coaches, we never had, you're either a coach or not, they were lying through their teeth and they knew what they were doing. And I saw people have their livelihoods taken away from them just like that from somebody just calling compliance and being like, I think so-and-so has joined another MLM. And like without even checking, they just terminate them. And there's nothing that person can do because they're not protected as a 1099 contract worker. People were out for blood. It was the most vicious thing I've ever seen.
Oh, I remember all of that. I was right there. And at the time I was saying that I would bleed blue, that I was so entrenched.
Right. Everyone said that.
Craziness. And I can remember calling compliance on people, because I was like, I thought I was doing what I needed to do, that I was protecting the company, even though the company didn't give a flying pig's butt about me or anyone else. All they cared about is making money. That's the bottom line,
I remember when I left, because somebody sent me a screenshot of our upline, what she posted in her group, and she had posted, which keep in mind, I'm not here to like villainize her. I think that the CEOs of MLMs are the corrupt, evil people. The distributors, even the highest ones in the company, I just think that they are victims. That's what I think. But to show you the mindset of how they think, like our upline had posted a picture not long after I left, and she had put on her wedding dress and was holding her, her bouquet from her wedding. And she had like taken a picture smiling and holding it. And she was like, marriage is hard, but you make a commitment and you promise that you're always going to work on it. You're never going to leave. You're always going to be there. You're going to follow through with what you said. Well, I want to ask you, how many of you are married to your business? Because I am, and I will always be married to my business because I made that commitment, and it just went on and on and on. And I remember thinking when I saw those screenshots, I was like, no, you don't marry a business. That's not business smart. What are you thinking? Like, but that's the indoctrination that occurs deep in. And she didn't post that on her regular public social media because she knew how crazy that would look. She posted that in the private groups with the coaches because she was worried about more people leaving.
Well, and that just gets people to like say yes more, and if they're like, oh yes, I am committed, I am. So they're going to like keep them in because you're trying to keep your, Jenga tower, you're just trying to keep it all aligned because otherwise it's just going to collapse. Oh goodness.
Yeah.
Now, something else I do want to ask you about, because I remember going to Super Saturday, which was a quarterly event, and also going to Summit, which is the conference. And when I looked around, I'm like, okay, well, one of my friends was African American. She was on the same, team that we were on. And then anyone else was pretty much white women. There might have been a Hispanic here or there. And other than that, it was just like white and blonde, that to me when I looked around. And I always found that to be like, wow. And especially now on the other side, as I'm looking at things, I'm like, why is it? It's just like, it's mostly white women. And you being, part white, part, African American.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, you had to deal with the fact that it was a bunch of white women around you. And so, were you able to recruit other people? Like, were you able to create, if I can talk, were you able to recruit other Black women, or was it, white women only? And what was it that, what do you think that attracts predominantly white women to MLMs?
So to answer the first question, did I recruit Black women? So I never cold messaged anybody. Which is why I created so much content all the time, because I was trying to be an attraction marketer so people could approach me, because I just knew, I was like, I don't like to be cold messaged. I don't want to do that to anybody. So I didn't tell my team they had to do that either. I was just like, work on content, yada, yada, which is also exhausting. Don't get it twisted. It's also exhausting. I never had Black women approach me about it. No. But a lot of my network in the beginning was a lot of white people, because I come from a very small town in the middle of Missouri. I was one of, out of 350 people in my graduating high school class, 4 of us were Black. There were 4 Black girls in the entire class of 350 people. 2 of us were mixed, including myself. Which was a very tough upbringing, dealing with racism and everything. And so, no, I had a lot of people in my network who were white. So I would say, to answer your second question, like why there are so many white women in MLMs, I really think it just all goes back to, these roots run so deep. It goes back to systemic racism. It goes back to capitalism and the ugliness that is capitalism, and how capitalism caters to white America. That's what they do. All their ads, like all their, everything, it caters to white America. So that's why I think MLMs are mostly white. They cater to white America.
Yeah, well, my favorite super trainer was always Sean T. I would just love to cuddle with him. He just is just such a beautiful man. It's like, oh, can I just like fall asleep next to you? You're so pretty.
He was pretty.
My husband was always like, yeah. I've always found it interesting where, but then I have found a couple of MLMs. I found 2 different ones that were sanitary napkins created by some Black guys. I think one Hispanic guy that were like from Atlanta or something. And then I found a funeral insurance MLM that was in South Africa, but created by a white guy, but, caters to, the South Africans. I'm like, oh my gosh, all of these companies just need to stop, which, it's like the Hydra. You can't just shut them down. And now I wish that we could just go chop and done. But some of the problem also is the fact that the Direct Seller Association and the FTC, they switch places. people who are in one go to another. And so it's like, you basically have, the wolf guarding the hen house.
Yeah, absolutely. And now MLMs are starting to realize like, oh, we can make a profit off brown and Black communities. And so, I mean, they're trying to infiltrate Mexico hardcore because the Hispanic community, like those families are so tight knit. I mean, and they have usually bigger families than most. And so obviously, like they want you to recruit everybody you know. And it just sucks because anytime you go after a marginalized group of people, that group of people is going to be hurt worse and left in worse shape than the average group of people who are also going to be left in bad shape. But if you go after marginalized communities, they're going to be in worse shape.
Well, it's interesting because, like the Enagic, which is the water filter thing, whatever, and people get upset when I call it a water filtration MLM, the Enagic Huns do, but I'm just calling it that because it's just easy. I don't care. It's like, oh, okay, so I'm not being proper for what it is.
It's okay. I called New Skin the toothpaste MLM.
Right? Exactly. But, that really caters to a lot of people in Asia, and they think it's absolutely fabulous. And they talk about how it's, a licensed medical device or whatever, which I haven't actually really looked into that. I don't really care, but I do know that what they're doing is harming thousands of people. I also did an interview with Dr. Peter Kahn, who studied MLMs as an anthropologist in Mexico. And I can't remember the name of the one that's so big in Mexico. But what was interesting with that is that as an anthropologist,
wasn't it Herbalife?
No.
Oh, okay.
It was like, I think it was like Nutrilife or OmniLife, or it was some other thing, but it was an offshoot basically from Herbalife, if memory serves, which memory may not be serving. But what was interesting is that as an anthropologist, and as he was documenting this, of course, he had never been part of an MLM. He looked at it that, well, maybe it's giving them something that it might not be that financial freedom that you're told that you can get, but that sense of community, that sense of this. But he did see people just continue to buy product, and they didn't seem to be worried by the fact they weren't making money. According to, if I am remembering correctly, which I found it interesting to try to look at MLM with like a different set of eyes. Because, our eyes in a way are tainted because we've been in there. So if we can look at it, from the outside of like, okay, how could this be serving people? I'm always going to go back to, it's destroying people economically, emotionally, psychologically, like in so many different ways. And you don't know that it's happening. And even those people at the very top, as you've said, I often will say that I see the Huns as the symptom. They're not the problem. The problem is the people, the overall structure, the umbrella of what a multi-level marketing company is. And it's those CEOs, those people who are like, you know what? I think I'm going to be selling something and I'm going to use this MLM structure.
Mm-hmm.
And they have to know exactly what they're doing. There was a part of me, I think, when I first started that I was like, well, maybe the CEO of Beachbody really didn't know.
You're taught to believe that they are next to God, the CEOs, and that they just want to help save the world.
Well, Beachbody is the Sheffield Group. I can't talk. I'm going to have to edit this shit out. Had I mentioned to you the Sheffield Group before?
Mm-hmm. They like help people create MLMs.
Yeah. So Beachbody is one of their clients. So it's like, oh, okay. So y'all all are talking and, sharing secrets. And when you start looking at the people who are at the C level in all these companies, you can start seeing like what other MLM they've worked for. So, there's just these secrets going back and forth, how you do this, how you do that. It basically is all inbred is the way I look at it,
Yeah. That's a good way to look at it. Yeah.
They're all sleeping with each other, moving around, around.
And to go back to what you were saying, in my experience, I've determined that there are 3 reasons somebody joins an MLM. And it's either for community, for a discount on the products that they like, or to make money, or it's all 3.
Yeah. And I would say the people who do it for the discount on the products, they don't stick around with those products very long because the products are overpriced,
No, in my year in review from Beachbody, it told me that I had Here it is. Okay, so the average number of months your PS coaches, your personally sponsored coaches, have stayed on Shakeology in 2016 was 5.6 months. That's for a coach. Okay, and it says for comparison, the average was 5.6 months in 2015. So it was the same amount of time. So I remember seeing that. I'm like, they only stay on it for an average of 5.5 months. And then it said, let's see here. It said I had recruited 39 new coaches in 2016. For comparison, you recruited 89 coaches in 2015. I was running out of my network. But then they only stayed on for 5.5 months of Shakeology on average. And I remember thinking, oh my God, like this feels like a house of cards. Like this is crazy. Like it doesn't matter how hard you work, you're going to have to continually like keep adding people in because they're going off the product. Let's see here. Oh, and here, get this. So I had like hundreds of customers. Okay. Like, I mean, I recruited coaches, but I also recruited a lot of customers because I was running challenge groups all the time. And I got certified as a certified nutritionist back in 2014. So it said your customers, you currently have 11 customers on Shakeology HD. So on Shakeology Home Direct, you have 11 customers. And for comparison, you had 23 customers on Home Direct this time in 2015. And it said that the average number of months your customers stay on Shakeology in 2016 was 2.4 months. And for comparison, the average was 2.3 in 2015.
Well,
it is a house of cards.
Wow. Okay, you know what I'm kind of curious about is, okay, those people at the top, I guess they're not doing those 4 vital behaviors that those at the bottom that we're all having to do, the invite, the, you know, and all this crazy stuff that we're doing. How are they recruiting differently, or are they recruiting differently? Because you said you didn't do any cold messages, and I did do cold messages. I did try attraction marketing. I ran Facebook ads too, all for naught.
Mm-hmm. So ads, one of the top people now, I've told you before the story, but she's our ex-upline's like best friend. Now she is, now that she proved herself and got to the top as a 15-star diamond. I remember asking her, because we started at the same time, we once led a team call together, and then all of a sudden she just started taking off. And I was like, yo, what are you doing? Like, I was messaging her, I was like, hey, what are you doing? Like, how are you advancing so fast? This is crazy. Like, congrats, but what are you doing? Because we're all over here struggling. And it wasn't just me, like several people from the team who were like Star Diamonds were being like, hey girl, what are you doing? What are you doing? She would not return our messages. So I was like, well, screw that. So I went in our big group and I tagged her and I was like, hey, I messaged you. Can you tell me what you're doing to advance so quickly? Like, I don't play. Like, let me know. I would let you know. And so then immediately I got a message from her. She didn't answer in my public post. She's like, hey, so I started an ad a few months ago, like, cause this was probably around like March. She was like, I started an ad in November. I did not have money to do it at all. I put it on a credit card. I spent $245 on an ad in November, and it just started taking off, and it's just been taking off ever since. And so I just keep putting money to it. I'm not going to change it. I'm too scared to touch it, but it's been getting me a lot of leads. And so like to this day, she still runs that ad. And I mean, she just stayed with that ad. It helped grow her network. But so it's things like that. Like, they're running ads, and they're also running ads on like Google or YouTube. Like, it's not just Facebook. I mean, it's extensive, and they're hiring a lot of people to do that for them too.
Well, you know, what's interesting with that person that you mentioned, she has a background in marketing. So it's like, okay, you're going to kind of have a leg up on how to do some of those things. Because I can remember, because I think you were in a Social Team Builders also. Were you in that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I can remember doing like the 10 different ads and trying to do the A/B split testing and all of this and finding your winning ad and all this crap. And I spent in that year a couple of $1,000s, you know, on ads, and I got nothing out of it at all. So, I mean, learning how to do ads and finding an ad that will work, that again, that's something that the average person may have to invest thousands of dollars in to find something that might work. You just can't come out the gate and put something together and it's like, boom, it's just going to take off. I think you have to have, you know, like what she had, a bit of some knowledge, to be
Oh, yeah.
able to know how to do that.
Oh, yeah. Well, one of the top people, her name starts with an A, last name starts with a B as in boy. It's an M. It's an M, I think. Yeah, M. I remember listening to her on a team call that was in like one of those special elite training groups. And she said, I used to be I think she was like a paralegal. And she's like, I knew from working at this law firm that 10% of their budget went to marketing. So that's what I did when I started with Beachbody. 10% of everything I made went to marketing. And I'm like, what? Like, I didn't know that. Like, but then again, I don't come from a marketing background. I wasn't trained in marketing. So I'm like, what in the world? Like all this time, like no wonder you have over 200,000 followers. Like all this time you've been putting I'm like, I just had no idea. And that's the thing. Like people don't know this, but yeah, if you have a experience in marketing, you do have a leg up, but they like to tell you like, no, anybody can do it. Anyone.
Yeah. And like the little marketing classes that we would take, it's like that's going to teach us the things to do. And it was like so surface, so basic. I mean, did I learn some stuff? Yeah, I learned some things I didn't know, but overall, did I learn enough? No. If you want to learn marketing, go get a marketing degree. Don't do it through some.
Well, yeah, my friend's getting a marketing degree, and the first thing they're teaching her in her first and second semester are tax rules and tax laws. And I'm like, oh, I wish I had known that. It would have saved me $11,500.
Yeah, because you're never told about any of that. That's never spoken about. I've never heard anybody in MLM talk about, what you need to do for taxes or, how to do anything to set up a real business, because the bottom line is you're an independent contractor. You don't really have a business per se, unless
Right.
you're an LLC or something. And if you do that, I sure hope you start, taking some classes and something and figuring out all the other things that you need to know, because you're not going to get that kind of information in multi-level marketing.
Right. They never taught me how to set up an LLC or S Corp. I had a family member who was kind enough to teach me how to set up an S Corp. And I was a little too late. Like the company didn't tell me, nor did my upline, like, hey, if you don't set up an LLC or an S Corp or a type of umbrella, you could be penalized because the IRS doesn't like you funneling all these funds in through your personal account. Or they don't tell you that, like, hey, when you reach a certain level of income, you have to start paying quarterly taxes, because otherwise you'll be penalized, fines and penalties. And that's what happened to me. Like people in my first video were commenting like, you didn't know to pay your taxes. And I'm like, of course I paid my taxes. I was a 1099 as a hairstylist for 7 years. I didn't know about quarterly taxes. I didn't know it was a thing. I didn't know I had to do it once I started reaching a certain income. And then I get slapped with an $11,500 fine from the IRS. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, like I had no idea about this. And it's so pathetic, because I'm not saying that an MLM has to be your CPA or teach you what a CPA does, but they make sure to give you an abundance of information based in like toxic positivity and thought programming and zero financial information.
Yeah, absolutely. 10,000%. But yeah, we have all these people running around talking about I'm a business owner. And the thing is that the Huns didn't come up with the idea that they're a business owner. I mean, you start looking at the literature from MLMs, they're telling you that on their websites. They're all telling you about you can have your own business. It's like, it's not your own business.
It always starts out so innocently, and it's like, I didn't know what I was doing, and then I just like fell into it, and it's been amazing, and I've been able to build this dream life. And that's what they do. They sell you the dream of it. But yeah, no, it really isn't your own business. Just with like what Beachbody did when they were compliance was just terminating people left and right, and their livelihoods was gone. Or like when Advocare went out of business with the distributors, and they like terminated hundreds of thousands of distributors. These people, like, their livelihood's just gone. That's not your own business.
No, absolutely not. Not at all. Well, girl, I want to say thank you so much for your time. I'll pause this and then we'll wrap up and all that stuff. But thank you so much for being here. I really enjoyed this. And I know that we can get back together at another point and talk more about stuff, and maybe just about, MLMs in general and the cult-like nature of everything. Because I think that is so very fascinating and breaking all of that down is so important because, like you said, those at the top, they're victims just like those at the bottom are. Everybody is being victimized by it. And, to some degree, I would even say the CEOs become a victim too, because it all started so long ago and they just thought like, oh, I can do this. But at some point, I think you kind of, I don't know, become kind of a scammer yourself when you're at the top.
Yeah, it all runs so deep. It's very cult-like. Thank you for having me.
The thing that I think I find the most heartbreaking about this entire interview is that Josie was told to leave people behind, just leave them. And I can understand that if you are in that kind of bubble and you are having success and that's what you're told and that's what other people are doing, that you're going to start behaving in that same way too. Now, myself, I know when I had like one or two people underneath me, I always thought, I'm not going to treat people the way I was treated. But at the time, I didn't realize they were being told, just leave them behind, just leave them. No wonder I was left to my own devices and to run all over the internet trying to find, some sort of magic so that I could make this whole thing work for me. There is an expectation that when you join an MLM, that you will immediately be able to get somebody that you know to buy whatever it is that you're shilling. Now, it doesn't matter the fact that you are brand new to the company and you don't really know anything about it. The expectation is you just need to go out there and hustle and sell something to someone. Now, just imagine what that would be like, if for an actual job where you're being paid a salary, that if you don't perform within a week, you're just going to be left. No one's going to help you. You're going to just be on your own. Doesn't that seem a little bit wrong to you? All of this to me seems extremely toxic. And I definitely can see how if you are in that 1% bubble, that your personality would change over time. I mean, you have to be able to change to be able to, cope with this mentally, the fact that you're getting people on your team and then you're not helping them because they're not performing on their own. But if they perform on their own, then you're going to help them, which it really seems kind of lopsided to me. It seems like if somebody's able to do it on their own, don't you want to help the people who are having a difficult time? So I think about my past life as a teacher. And there would always be some kids that would be struggling a bit. And I would help them. Not to say that I didn't help kids who were not struggling, but they didn't need as much help because they were able to, pick up whatever it is that we were doing. So those who are struggling, of course, I'm going to be there to help them. But that's not the case in MLM. You don't help those who are having a difficult time. You just cut them loose. You let them go and don't worry about them. And you just run with the winners. Now, last night, my husband and I, we watched 60 Minutes, and there was a segment about the opioid crisis in the U.S. And within this, there was like this unveiling, unmasking, if you will, of a playbook from a pharmaceutical company. And it made me think of this person who Josie had mentioned and who I also knew because we were all on the same team that had been a pharmaceutical rep. And it also made me think of the people who are in the top of multiple marketing companies, because within the context of this whole opioid discussion that was going on, there was someone who was a top salesperson. And he said that the less of a conscience you had, the more chance you had at being successful. You really couldn't think of people as people. You had to take the human factor out of it. And it makes me think of that about the MLM industry too, that if you are on the rise, you are at the top, you can't be worrying about, those people. All you can do is just really focus on what you're there to do. And what you're there to do is to get other people to join, to get other people to buy, to get other people to believe in the dream. I kind of have an idea that those at the very top of the MLM industry, we're not talking about the C-level, I'm talking the top level distributors, there's something about them that I think there's a part of their humanity that has been lost. And definitely, I don't think you can have much of a conscience left. I don't even know if they realize that, because I think they've been mentally manipulated so much by MLM that they have no idea how they have been transformed, how they've been brainwashed, how much they have actually changed in order to perpetuate this same myth and get it to continue, because they have to believe it full-heartedly in order to keep going. And like Josie said, those at the top, those top distributors, they're victims too. And that's something that I've said as well. They've all been manipulated by the overall structure of MLM. Now, the people that I do hold accountable are those who are at the top, meaning the C level. They know exactly what they're doing. They know that most people who join aren't going to make it. And they know that most people who join are going to lose money, and they just don't care. Now, please remember, be kind to anyone who is in this type of industry. And I know you may want to lash out sometimes, but I'm just asking you to refrain, because they are humans and they are victims. They are victims of a horrific industry. And in my opinion, those at the top need the most help waking up, because it's got to be really, really hard that if you are bringing in money and stuff, to be able to see this structure, this opportunity for what it actually is. I hope you found this informative. Now remember, your voice and your story is very important. So don't forget to share what you've been through. And maybe you're not ready right now, and that's okay. But above everything else, act with love and kindness towards anyone in this industry, because they really need that. And you're beautiful, and I love you.